Did you hear the Tas Petroleum Motorama is on bigger and better?
Is that just a guy thing?
It's for the whole family with something for everyone. Motorama is more than just cars and bikes.
Can we go? Can we go? Our rides are free.
Sure thing. Let's get our tickets.
Yay!
Get your heart racing and your adrenaline pumping at Tas Petroleum Motorama. October 26th to 27th, Symmons Plains Raceway. Go to motoramatas.com.au for tickets.
G'day guys, welcome to Motorama, a throwback to the great days of racing in Tasmania from 1953 through to 1968 at the wonderful Longford racetrack. A bit over 4 miles of racetrack, the fastest track in the Southern Hemisphere, attracted 7 Formula One world champions in that period of time. Today and tomorrow, you get to race on this fabulous piece of track in cars from the era. Wish you all good luck, have fun with it, and enjoy Longford.
Good news. If you had fun yesterday, we get to do it all over again. That's right. We're going to have more races here at the Motorama at Symmons Plains Raceway, provided, of course, by the HRSC. I'm Joe Peak, joined by Alex Goldschmidt tonight. And as before, we have our director, Christian Duploy, giving you all these wonderful images. And what a fantastic event we had last night, Alex. Just really showed off the great sim racing talent and also the incredible fun that these old cars and this classic track is.
Hi, Joe. Hi, everybody. Yeah, great pleasure to be alongside you. Yeah, I caught the stream yesterday. A lot of fun, of course. Seeing the old 1960s Mini Coopers, of course, in the mid-1960s, the 1275cc engine, which became a bit of a pocket rocket, if you will. Really showcased how much fun a front-wheel drive car can be. Actually, brings me back to when I first passed my driving test. My first car was a 1986 Mini Chelsea, so you've got a wheel on each corner, you've got a car that's very, very agile. Reminding me of the days when you had the likes of the Lotus Cortinas and the Mini Coopers battling it out in the British Touring Car Championship back in their early days, in their early heydays. And obviously seeing the Cobras, then we've got the single-seaters, so we've got the F3, we've also got the BT20, of course, run by the late Sir Jack Brabham, a man who was the only person in Formula One history to win a championship in a car bearing his own name. But yeah, I mean, you and Joey had a lot of fun yesterday.
We did indeed, and if you missed it, it's going to be the same format. So essentially, you get to make up for what you missed here as we're in free practice, and then qualifying is actually probably just about to start for the mini race, and we'll have that race itself. From there, they'll switch on over to the Cobras. They'll get that qualifying in. Much more powerful cars. We'll have that race. They'll each be 3 laps, and then if you enjoyed both of them, well, you get to combine them, as we will have the handicap race, much like they did at the real Longford back in the day. So the minis will take off first, and the Cobras will wait roughly a lap, and then they'll take off. It was within 4 seconds last time that they came to catching up the lead minis, so we'll see if they can get them this time. And then after that, it's off to the open wheel cars, as you heard Alex mention, with the Brabham BT20, as well as the Eve 3 Formula 3 car, which is going to be just a lot of fun out there, because they will have just a little bit of traffic at the end if it goes like it did last night in terms of when they'll start to catch that slower class. But talk us through this track. Yeah, like I said to Joey last night, Alex, it looks simple, but once you get out there, it is not simple.
I mean, yes, it's got 9 corners. It's a shade just over 7.2 kilometers, 4.5 miles. But, you know, this is going to provide slipstreaming. This is going to provide plenty of overtaking opportunities. Of course, the tightest part of the circuit is going to be the viaduct. The Flying Mile is where you're really going to see everyone stretch the legs on all these vehicles, including the Mini Coopers, which will be the first cars out on track. They are now underway with qualifying. Drivers have already gone out on their out laps, so we've got about 6 minutes to go until the checkered hits on that one. But of course, Longford, known as the Hams of the South Pacific, hosted the record for Australia's highest average speed until 1996, when Formula One had their first race back at Albert Park in Melbourne. And of course, it's located just 13 kilometres away from Symmons Plains Raceway, which currently hosts the Repco Supercars Championship, and also TCR Australia has also hosted S5000 Australian GT and the iconic Stadium Super Trucks. If you've ever seen those in action, you know what, if you haven't, click onto YouTube after this broadcast and have a watch. But this is going to showcase the speed of the Cobras, of course, the BT20, which won the F1 World Championship in the hands of Sir Jack Brabham, who won the F1 Drivers and Constructors Championship. That was the championship winning car that year. And of course, obviously in the F1 off season, during the Northern Hemisphere winter, a lot of F1 drivers, including the likes of Jim Clark, including the likes of Graham Hill, would come and race in the Tasman series, which ran from 64 to 75. Of course, a good friend of mine, very heavily experienced F1 journalist, used to frequent this, but you know what? Look at these aerial shots we're getting here. We're getting a real idea of how typical tracks in this era were, Joe, and especially with that Flying Mile going into Mountford Corner, which is going to be a very, very hard braking zone into pretty much just over a 90 right, is going to really test the drivers here.
Even sharper than a 90 right, Mountford, the slowest corner on the track, especially for these minis, which, as we saw yesterday, are a little bit top heavy, so you can't really take it too hot, and you definitely don't want to clip those inside tires through there. But first laps, looks like Reese Gardner has put the quickest time in so far. We're going to hop on board with the Southpaw Developments driver down into one of the trickiest parts here, braking into the viaduct and then having to accelerate off of it. Like you said, you've actually got experience in the real thing here. So, I mean, talk us through what it's like trying to whip one of these things around, Alex.
Well, I mean, my first experience with my Mini Chelsea, which was bright flame red. You know, you've got a car that can deal with a lot of high speed. It's very, very, it's like a go-kart. You know, you've got a wheel on each corner. But the biggest thing you're going to have to deal with around a very power-heavy circuit like this is chronic understeer under braking. You've got to really, really try and rotate the car in. And if anyone that's racing this has got a handbrake to their immediate right-hand side, might find that a little bit useful. Might scrub off a little bit of speed, but will rotate the car through the corners, Joe. And that's what you need. You know, back in the 60s and 70s, you know, it wasn't always about going fast in a straight line. Style points were not directly awarded, as we see how twitchy the car is under braking through in the hands of the 94 here of Reese Gardner, who is fastest in this qualifying session with 2 minutes and 40 to go on a 2:48.048. So we're nearly at 3 minutes a lap here. So of course the 1275cc engine produces around about 55 brake horsepower in terms of its power output. So that's a lot that you've got to power through the front wheels, but also you've got the drive lines connected to it, so it's an H-pattern 4-speed gearbox. And also you've got to deal with torque steer. You know, you try and accelerate out of the corners too quickly in one of these, you could spool up the front tyres and lose maybe a couple of tenths coming out of a corner, and that's quite crucial around a lap here at Longford.
Yeah, like you said, it's only 9 corners, so every single corner, getting that launch off of it, going to be so critical. And drivers are going to be able to complete their hot lap. So once they get around here, which should be after this corner up into Mountford, Reese should be able to continue on to do one final flyer. But we're still missing the time from Declan Brush, Cito Viger, and David Celadon. Didn't get to see David race last night, so glad to see another face in here. Cito, I did find out, by the way, part of the Brabham esports team.
Yeah.
So he and it was it Declan Brush? Let me double check.
Devin Palmer. Yeah,
That's
Devin
it. Thank
Browner,
you.
who's been with Brabham Motor. Well, it's now been renamed to Brabham Motorsport, of course, run by the son of Jack, David, multi-time F1 race starter, 24 Hours of the Le Mans race winner, who I just so happen to share a birthday with as well, the 5th of September. Yeah, that's quite a weird one. Every time I have to wish him a happy birthday, I either send him a text message or a DM via Twitter or something like that. But there you see in the bottom right-hand corner, there they are. There are the people at Simmons Plains Raceway, not too far from where it's located 13 kilometres southeast of Longford in Tasmania. But yeah, David Bakker-Celadon in the 00 Mini Motorama car is trying to get some warmth into those front tyres. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how many drivers decide to go a bit, if they decide to get a bit brave. They've had their bravery pills today. That's going to be the key point here. But Oskari Kantonen, another one who loves his historic racing, the Flying Finn in the number 72 Écurie Atlantique car. Oh, that was a big lock-up. I think that was going into Longford Corner just off of the flour mill. But seeing these cars in action, I love the fact that retro racing is coming into sim racing, and it's attracting a lot of people these days here, Joe.
It is. It's. I've been covering it quite a bit over on iRacing for a long time with their Grand Prix Legends series. They also have their IMSA Vintage series, as well as the Classic Lotus series, which is in the Lotus 79s. And I got to tell you, that is the most dedicated group of people I've ever met. They are so passionate about the cars, and that's what makes it so fun. Because everybody's out there for the sport of it. They're out there for the competition, but you can tell that they love the cars. They love the classic feel, and to try to make it as true as they can with what they've got to the racing, which is what we've got here. Because we have to remember the 67 layout. The year before, this track was shut down in 68. So this is kind of the one of the last iterations of this track in pretty period accurate machinery.
Yeah, I mean, the checkers have gone out for the session, but of course this will give the drivers the opportunity to really try and put a hot lap down. Kantonen improves, puts in a personal best in the second sector of what is a very, very long lap here. A lot of full throttle application here in these Mini Coopers. Lovely to see, that lovely rumble from these inline four-cylinder engines. Unfortunately, I didn't have the 1275. I had the 998 cc variation on my car. But for a 19-year-old just getting behind the wheel for the first time, you can see they're going to be locking up a lot under braking, as we can see Oskari Kantonen flicking out the rear end, going through Mountford Corner, and will cross the line. Now, will this be an improvement for Oskari Kantonen? He's just over 3/10 behind Reece Gardner in the 94 as he crosses the stripe, closes the gap down to exactly a quarter of a second.
Not enough to take the pole away, though, but as we saw last time, sometimes you can get sneaky down to the braking of the viaduct on that first lap, so we'll have to watch and see. And 12 drivers have managed to set a time. Still waiting on Celadon to put one down. In fact, this is him coming off the corner now. This could be important if he's got more speed than this, but we haven't really been able to see where he stacks up. So he'll cross the line. A 256.9 is not going to be up to speed, unfortunately. So he will still be at the back, but at least he got something representative on the board. So now we get just a short break for the warm-up, and then we'll be off to the race itself with 3 laps for these cars. And I have to say, I'm jealous. Your first car, a Mini Cooper, that's a lot cooler than my first, which was a Pontiac 6000 STE that already was up to something like 160,000 miles.
Well, I mean, the thing is that there's more opportunity for you guys stateside that can do longer road trips than we can do here on our tiny little island here in the UK, Joe,
Sure.
if I'm completely honest. But yeah, I mean, the thing was, I had that car for, I think it was 3 years, and a lot of great memories. I think the first week, well, my dad sort of said to me, right, for the first week, don't go any further than half an hour away from home. Just to get used to the car. And there were some rebellious moments. I'm not going to discuss on air exactly what I did, but the mini at that point, the car that was designed by the legendary car designer Sir Alec Isagonis, God rest his soul, really showcased the way of how not just automotive, but how also motorsport would develop. I mean, you look at the likes of Paddy Hopkirk, who took victory in the Monte Carlo Rally in a Mini Cooper. So there's a lot that you can take from, this diminutive car, but which has so much potential. And of course, the Mini has evolved over the decades, and now is one of the marks underneath the BMW group. But the Mini Cooper, always a cool car. It's never lost its joie de vivre. It's never lost its impact. As very shortly, folks, we're going to be getting underway with our first race of day 2 of Motorama. A big thank you to Tas Petroleum, Quality Fuel and Lubricants for helping along with the backing of this event. Of course, great to see the people over at Simmons Plains Raceway, where Motorama is being hosted this weekend. Great to see people getting a love for being able to enjoy the classics in a virtual setting, and also understanding the physics and the dynamics of how truly difficult these cars were to drive back then.
Exactly, and to give you that sense, as you can see, you've got an opportunity to drive them. So if you're watching or listening here over at Simmons Plains, make sure and get in line and give it a go. See how you stack up against some of these regular sim racing drivers, and see if maybe you get bitten by the bug, which I will warn you is easy to do. And next thing you know, it could really be a hobby that is all-consuming. But we're looking forward to what is definitely going to be the most character-filled set of cars that we'll have during this afternoon's racing. For us, once again, it is the evening. For Joey, it was a little bit better time because he's over on the west coast of North America. Poor Alex is over in the UK, and it's even later for him than it is for me. So, Alex, I appreciate you coming and joining us and getting to come along for the ride tonight.
Yeah, well, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. We've just gone back an hour. We've gone back from British summertime to Greenwich Mean Time. So, which means after this broadcast, I get an extra hour in bed. So that's always good. But yeah, to see people enjoying themselves at Motorama over in Oz, great to see people getting involved with this. And of course, this just showcases our love for keeping classic car racing alive. And that's one of the beautiful things I love about sim racing, that there's always this opportunity to introduce people to sim racing through a variety of different categories, and that's exactly what we've got on show here today with the Minis, the AC Cobras, the Formula 1 cars, the BT20s, then of course the Formula 3 cars that we're going to have as the final showcase here for day 2 at Motorama. It just goes to show that it's passion for motorsport. That's what it is. And it doesn't matter whether you're behind the wheel of a real classic car on a track or behind the wheel, you're still going to get the hairs on the back of your neck standing up, the goosebumps on your forearms. I mean, I'm even getting that right now, even though it's 3 a.m. here in the United Kingdom, where I'm sitting.
And if you want to know who to thank for this awesome opportunity, the distinguished gentleman you'll see hovering around in the striped shirt, that is Wuchu, who actually made this track in rFactor 2. So a big thank you to Wuchu for all the organization he's put into this, and also for all the hard work, the labor of love that he made, that created this fantastic classic course that everybody's getting to not only race on, but you can get to try over at Motorama. Some of the drivers, it looks like, having a bit of trouble there. The car not exactly facing the right direction.
Could also have 3 wheels on that wagon for all we know, Joe. One might have just gone a bit awry, probably exited stage left or stage right. But you never. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about sim racing, is you can get behind the wheel. You don't have to worry about invoices like real-life racing drivers have to. At every single race meeting they go to, they're worried about how much damage is going to take out of their sponsorship budget for racing in a particular season, as a lot of the IRL stuff is coming to a close with their season finales around the world in terms of real motorsport. But just seeing the track plans that we've got, but we're gridding up and getting ready for our first race of day 2 here, Joe.
Indeed, your grid sees Reese Gardner on the pole with Askari Kantonen in second spot, Nicholas Kirsten in P3, and Nicholas Hillebrand starting in 4th today for Mini Motorama. Then back in 5th, it's Matt Wrights for Sussex Engineering, Max Schrapp starting to his outside, Steph Hermans in 7th, and Darren Andrews for Baskerville Hobbyist Racing starting in the 8th position. 9th will be David Purchase, as Austin Birchfield will start in the 10th spot. Then it's Riley Wyans in P11, and Carl Struhal, another new name, starting after him. David Bassa Celadon starting in 13th, and Cito Vire won't be starting in this race as far as I can see out on the grid. It did not set a time in the Mini. Hopefully he'll get to join us a little bit later. So now we listen for the call. There it is. And there's the green flag as the drivers take off from the line. A little bit slow there in the back from Celadon as they get going, but they're going to fly over the crest in a moment. And last time out in the first race, we had a car flip over and light on fire. Let's cross our fingers that it's a little bit safer.
Yeah, Canton and Gardner already side by side. Kirsten and Wright side by side. Hillebrand branding out at the top 5 as we go into the viaduct and underneath Kingsbridge for the opening tour out of 3 here at Longfield underneath the bridge, and that is Gardner through for the race lead as Cantonen kicks up the dust. We're riding on board with Matt Wright, who's just behind Nicholas Kirsten, so we're on board with the number 11 from Sussex Engineering. You can now see, you can hear how high these cars are revving up. Lock up on the front axle. Oh, Kirsten sideways through at Longford corner, just off of the flour mill and the pub. Crikey, he definitely had a bit of a code brown there, did Nicholas Kirsten, but held it all together.
I can't believe he didn't even lose any positions. He just carried on like nothing happened. That was a miraculous save of that car coming through the corner. And we got another battle for the lead between Kantonen and Gardner coming down into Tannery Corner. We're going to see a lot of this most likely. Reese Gardner lost out on that top spot at the end of the first lap last time. What's going to happen this time? Can he get away clean when they get around to Mountford Corner? And also, who's going to lead out of Tannery? Very tight between them. Reese getting the shot off the outside.
And now Nicholas Hillebrand threading the eye of the needle in the battle for P3. He's got through on both Kirsten and Wright. Dive bomb and then some from Nicholas Hillebrand. He gets through. He now ends up slotting in behind Kirsten, who retakes 3rd position, as that's Max Schrapper up the inside of Matt Wright, coming through into Newry. Someone's gone off track, exit stage left, bringing out the yellow in sector number 2. And now we go down the iconic Flying Mile, and Gardner and Kantonen are not even separated at the moment. Hillebrand in the slipstream of Kirsten as they head down the Flying Mile and heading down towards Mountford Corner as we are set to complete lap 1 out of 3.
Last time it was a car out breaking themselves from behind the battling leaders that took them out. This time, Kirsten looks a little bit farther back, so hopefully we won't have a repeat of that situation. Remember, first lap of the race, everybody trying to make sure that they hit their marks so that they don't outbrake themselves, but at the same time, not brake too early. Down into the corner, squirming. Kantonen struggling to get that car stopped in time. They're still going to stay side by side. Reese has to go off track to give him the space, and the battle continues with a drag race to complete lap 1.
Look at this, it's 2x2 side-by-side hurrah between first and second. Kantonen's got the advantage. He's a car length and a half lead over Gardner as they're going to go down underneath the viaducts and underneath the Kingsbridge very shortly. Hillebrand still putting the frighteners on Kirsten for that 3rd place. Now into the right-left complex. Gardner under braking, the front end snaking from side to side underneath Kingsbridge, neatly negotiated by the pair. Gardner gets a little bit of snap-on oversteer on the back end of the number 94. Ooh. Oh, we've had a big roll underneath the Kingsbridge. Who on earth was that?
was trying to make out, and it may have been Matt Wright, unfortunately, as I see him losing positions, but we'll try and get confirmation.
Max Schrapper as well has dropped down the order, so they're running out the top 11. So here's the replay. So Riley Wyans, he's the one that ends up in the lamppost. Oh dear.
So that was the first lap, actually.
And Max Schrapper and Darren Andrews are both DNF'd in the meantime, Joe. So we're down to 11 runners and riders, but Canton still trying to keep Gardner at bay. Hillebrand's lost a little bit of distance back to Kirsten in third. So when you look at it, the top four covered by just shy of a second. Yellow Ants again in sector number 1, but Cantonen, the flying Finn at the front end of the field, keeping Gardner at bay. Kirsten, Hillebrand, Birchfield running at the top 5. Bacchus Celadon, who started 13th, now running P6, ahead of Herman's Stroll and Purchase, with Ryan's running at the top 10. So Matt Wright, Max Schrapper, both under that incident after the King's Bridge, unfortunately retiring, and Darren Andrews also out of the race. But Canton runs wide.
Yep, up and on the berm, and that's going to slow him down. Reese Gardner is going to take advantage, take the lead right back. They are now nose to tail. There is nothing between all of them, and it looks like it was Matt Wright. Involved secondarily as he gets into the back of Riley Wyans, or whoever that was.
That was Schrapper in the 16. Yeah, he lost it coming out underneath the King's Bridge, went off the circuit into the ditch, and it pitched him straight into the path of Wright. Wright had nowhere to go. But meantime, Nicholas Kirsten is very much close. Well, it's Gardner, Kirsten. Well, Gardner, Canton, Kirsten, where is Hillebrand? He's slotting in behind the Finn, who's just kicked up the dust as they go through into the right-hander onto the start-finish straight. And here we go. We're going to start the third and final lap. The white flag's going to be in the air. And Reese Gardner holding on as if his life depended on it, but he's got a gap of nearly 7/10. And Nicholas Kirsten, Oskari Kantonen, and Nicholas Hillebrand rounding out the three-way scrabble. Hillebrand could make this 3 wide going into the viaduct on the final tour.
Is there even enough track to make it 3 wide here? Look at how narrow this circuit is. And he might be able to sneak in there, but it's fast on the brakes coming into this corner. Look at Canton and trying to get the car slowed down. They're going to rub doors against one another as Kirsten is making him fight for it. Watch out for that ditch. Don't want to see the same incident all over again. They're going to be able to avoid it. But my goodness, the more they fight, the more Reese Gardner is stretching that lead.
Yeah, it's now up into a second as they're going to head into Longford Corner. So you've got the pub on the left, the flour mill just ahead. And we ride on board with the number 70 Mini Motorama of Nicholas Hillebrand, the man from Germany. And he is going to try and... I love that little bit of attention to detail, because you've got the railway just coming out of the 90 right, coming out of Longford Corner. And now they are hard on the throttle. They're going up the rev range. Cantonen and Kirsten are involved in this dogfight, but look at the closing speed from Hillebrand. Could he pull it to the left? He is going to try. And this is down Tannery Straight in towards Tannery Corner. We've got a slight right-hand kink. Hillebrand slightly edges in front, briefly for a moment in front of Kirsten, but has to slot in behind the number 10 as going rally crossing. Showing the rallying pedigree of the Mini Cooper. Reese Gardner completely wide coming out of Tannery, and keeps it 2 wheels on the grass, kicks the dirt up into the air, and still has a lead of 8/10.
Over the South Esk River once again. They're catching up to Gardner as hard as he's pushing. He can't seem to break that slipstream to them. All of them trying to go as hard as they can to put him under threat into the final corner. This is not over until they get to that finish line as we watch on board with 4th place Nicholas Hillebrand. Is that too far back? Has he waited too long to try and make his move, or does he just not have the speed to try and challenge along the flying mile? It's going to be Kirsten who looks down to the inside of Cantonen. They're back by about 7/10 of a second now on Reese Gardner. Surely that is too far gone to try and get by him into that outbreaking of Mountford. Here comes Hillebrand, though, looking for that 3 wide, 2 wheels into the dirt as he opens up the track, tries to shove his way in as he wants some racing room. They're going to come 3 abreast down into the hairpin as the 70 is going to be able to get there in time, get some bumps from behind, but he steals 2nd place while Reese Gardner is going to be your winner for the race this time in the Minis in race number 1.
What a move, and all I'm going to say is Nicholas Hilbrand had a big pair of steelies to pull off that move going into the final corner at Mountford, as we've got the battle for 6th, 7th and 8th. David Bakker-Celeron from pretty much last on the grid will round out the top 6, and Carl Strahal in the number 53 rounds out the top 8. Riley Wyans will come across the line. But my goodness, move of the day so far. Nicholas Hilbrand, 3 wide, 2 wheels on the grass on Cantonen and Kirsten to get through. And he even got an assist from behind, courtesy of the number 10 of Kirsten, and held on to second. But what a run by Rhys Gardner, initially battling between himself and Oskari Cantonen for the race win and the lead. But yeah, Gardner does it again.
They set a pretty high bar here for the first race of 4. Rhys Gardner, your victor over Hilbrand, as Kirsten will come home in 3rd, and Cantonen, who looked like he might finish 2nd, was demoted to 4th right at the very end. Austin Birchfield, a bit of a quiet 5th for him. David Bakker-Celeron, as you mentioned, into 6th position. Steph Hermans in 7th, and Carl Struhal in the 8th spot. David Purchase was P9, and Riley Wyans did manage to finish the race after his initial first lap incident in 10th place. From there, Matt Wright, Max Schrappa, and Darren Andrews, all DNFs here for the first race. But they'll get some redemption, as we will have 3 more races to go here, Alex. It certainly felt just as fun as last night. Did it feel like you were back in the old Mini watching this?
Oh man, yeah, definitely, 100%. It just brought back those childish, rebellious days of, being in your late teens and having a bit of fun on roundabouts, public roads. As I said, I'm gonna plead the 5th on that, Joe, as you guys would stay stateside. Cut the handbrake turns, maybe a little bit of sideways action at a roundabout. You know how it is when you're young and you just think you're infallible. But it was, for those 3 years of ownership, that car was like part and parcel. And I still remember the registration number. That's how much that car I had a connection with. The registration number, and I think the car still might be legally on the road, C23HKK. That was the first registration number. I've got one of these photographic memories of some of the cars that I remember owning. I've owned a Mini Coupe. I've owned that Mini. I've owned an Alfa Romeo back in a few years ago. But yeah, I think it just brought me back to those days of when, these cars are old school. What I mean by that, there's no anti-lock brakes, there's no traction control, there's no lane assist, or all this wonderful technology that we see on modern cars that a lot of people don't like. But it's just the charisma of just you, 3 pedals, an H-pattern 4-speed gearbox, and an engine that is going to rev to its rev limit without you having to worry about it blowing up. This is when cars were cars and they were driven with a purpose, and that's what I love about the Allure. The Mini's always got a big part within my love as a car enthusiast and also as a driver. So yeah, I'm talking like 90. When was it I passed my test? 1996. So first 3 years of ownership, I wish I'd never sold that car. I
wish I had a car that I was as attached to, because I am mostly just curious where that Pontiac is at this stage, not really wanting to have it again. But I agree with you. And like I said, we start off with the cars with the most character of everything that we're going to be seeing today. Those Minis just have so much life to them, such a draw. I remember my first introduction was I got into RC cars when I was young, and my dad, who wanted to, get to take part in it with me, found an RC Mini that he could buy, and he actually painted it with the Union Jack on the roof and everything, custom. So he had some fun with that thing, and I hope these drivers here today have had just as much fun, and you as well if you're over at Motorama right now. Hope you're enjoying getting to run them. But now we're going to pick up the horsepower a little bit because we're heading off to the Cobras. Now, you were enjoying the attention to detail with the railroad crossing. Get ready, because both the Cobras and the F1 cars for later are actually going to get quite airborne coming across there. So it is going to be a little sketchy at stages here as we get ready for the Cobra race in just about 6 minutes time. They're actually in the qualifying session for that race right now, and we'll turn over to that in just a moment once we start to get close to some laps being put on the board. It's all the same drivers that you've been watching both yesterday and today, just competing in different vehicles at the same track.
Yeah, I mean the AC Cobra, an iconic car, of course, linked with a man who is very much missed, Carroll Shelby. One of the men who was instrumental in Ford's Le Mans project back in the 60s against Ferrari. Yeah, interesting that you mentioned about Cobras. Well, if anyone might remember a man by the name of Jack Sears, who was a very, very successful UK motor racer, also has a trophy named after himself. Now, there is a little bit of trivia. In the early hours of June 11th, 1964, AC Cars took a 4.8 litre Ford-powered Cobra Coupe GT onto the M1 to do a high-speed test run. Jack Sears was behind the wheel. The speed he recorded, 185 miles an hour, as Darren Andrews has just had a nasty off and smacked the wall coming through the King's Bridge, and there were 3 wheels on that wagon for that AC Cobra.
Unfortunately, became more like a spitting Cobra that time, so
True.
He's going to have to get back out there pretty quickly because we only got 5 minutes left in this qualifying session, and as we saw, it takes a long time to get around here. In fact, there you go. He's knocked some of the bollards off of that little section on the exit of the viaduct, so those are kind of now just sitting on the track. Hopefully that doesn't cause any problems for these cars. Here we go. Now, whoa, if he can make the corner, Kirsten, well, it's not going to show us what it's like over the railway at full tilt, so we'll check on that a little bit later. We're going to check in with Cantonen instead as they get up to speed down to Tannery Corner. Now, one thing to watch out for here, because these cars are up to 290 plus kilometers per hour. There's a little kink. You can just see it right there into Tannery that doesn't really show up on the track map, but you can see it in the car. And they're trying to get on the brakes as they're coming into that. So it does make it quite difficult to line up that corner.
Yeah, I mean, folks, when we're talking 293 kilometers an hour, we're probably talking close to 175 mph. As you can just see how difficult it is to steer these cars around. I mean, Oskar Cantonen, who we saw in the mini race taking 4th position, has gone purple across the board. Of course, no one's really set a benchmark, but to hear this, this wonderful V8 just thunder down the flying mile is just music to my ears here, Joe.
Yeah, as we saw yesterday, this is a car all about the power, not quite so much about the turning. It does do it decently well, but you can see he's having to slam on the binders now, try to make the corner, and the car really does not want to turn. That was not the apex.
That was as far removed from the apex as you could probably think, to be completely honest with you, but thunders across the line. Benchmark by Cantonen, 2-minute 15.363. Neil Senkowski puts in a 2:16.8, so the Vilk Sport number 31 comes flying over the crest, 4 wheels in the air. That's just wonderful to watch, but then you've got to slow it down for the viaduct and get yourself through at the King's Bridge. We've still got 2 3/4 minutes left to go in this qualifying session, Joe. Sidor Vaya has just put in a 2:16.6, so Cantonen, despite trying to slow it down to the best of his intentions, is fastest of anybody.
Which is amazing, because I would have thought that mistake would have cost him. There it is. Yeah, wheels just getting light and just barely hopping off the ground for Neil Sentowski, but he had it nice and straight. Currently third on the timing sheets as we're still waiting for about 6 cars to set a time from here. Reese Gardner, can he go back-to-back on these? He managed to win in the minis in the handicap race yesterday. He was not able to win.
That? Oh,
the one
that was
car.
Cito Vaya. I think that was Cito Vaya that went off.
Yeah. Yep, you're right. So he's going to have to tow it back in, and that's going to leave him too little time to get back around. Even with the speeds, by the way, I checked, it's about 184 miles an hour that these cars are reaching. Even with that, they're still taking 2 minutes and 15 seconds for the fastest drivers to circulate around here. That's how long this track is.
I think they're probably the best part of 20 plus seconds quicker than the minis. And folks, we've got the handicap race coming up, which is Mini versus Cobra, and that's 5 laps as opposed to 3 that we'll have for the Cobra race coming up. So I'm looking forward to the handicap race. That's going to be absolutely thrilling, I'm sure.
It is a real hoot, and yeah, it's somewhere in the realm of about 30 seconds difference between them. So there was talk, and I don't know if there has been any confirmation yet about potentially sending off the Cobras just a hair earlier to give them a better shot. But I don't know. I felt like the timing was just about spot on with 4 seconds between them when they crossed the line, kind of leaving it more up to the driver to really perfect those 5 laps around here.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, that's a lot of racing. That's probably the best part of over 40 kilometers of total racing action. You know, the circuit itself, 7.242 kilometers, so just a shade over 4.5 miles. But you can see now Reese Gardner, just as he's having to brake very, very early for the next corner to just literally just coast it through. As we've just had Austin Birchfield, I think, just come across the line. So here comes Reese Gardner. Checker is out for the session. And Reese Gardner goes P5 on that effort. 2:17.2 for the number 94. Cito Vaya might be able to... Well, he's just gone personal best in the opening sector. He's just under 39.6. But way off the first sector of Oskari Kantonen, who put in an absolute flyer, 39.079. So Vaya's got a lot of time to make up. He's about 9 tenths behind Darren Andrews. As you can see how much the Brabham Motorsport driver is pushing, obviously in the resplendent in the traditional Brabham livery of British Racing Green and that wonderful gold accents, especially on the power scoop here on the hood of this AC Cobra. He's gone and put in a personal best. He was slightly quicker than Oskari Kantonen, but can he best Darren Andrews? He's quicker through sector 2, and now he's really stretching the legs on this big naturally aspirated V8 down the flying mile.
And interestingly, just ahead of him, that's Niels Santowski, who went fastest of anybody in the second sector. So he is on a good one, could be jumping up the order from outside of that second row, but this will tell the tale once they cross the timing beam. Vire will hit it just after Santowski does. I wait to see what the timing updates to. Niels is up to P2. Cito will get ready to cross the line, and he takes that away immediately. A great last effort from both of them. And I'll tell you what, the pole between Kantonen and Visor is separated by 11 thousandths of a second.
Main reason being, Cito Vaya did a 46.5 dead through that final sector, and Oskari Kantonen's fastest final sector was a mid 46.9, so 4.5 tenths in that final sector. That's how close it was. That was incredible from Cito Vaya, of course. No wonder someone like David Brabham has signed him up for the Brabham Motorsport sim racing team, as Riley Wines for the Vet City Motorworks crew in the number 13. Oh, well, that's his session ended abruptly. But, well, what could you say? I mean, an exciting, enthralling qualifying session. Of course, Nicholas Kirsten, third in the mini race, starts down in P12. Reese Gardner, who won the mini race, starts P7. but Ascari Kantonen, as you see a couple more people trying out the sims there at Simmons Plains Raceway at Motorama this year, which has seen some people enjoy the opportunity to get behind these classic race cars and give it a go. And big thank you to Wuju, who's down there at Ground Zero, giving us regular updates on the HRSC Discord server, and a big thank you to Genisus Extreme for being able to help us broadcast this wonderful event over the last couple of days.
Absolutely. So, as it says on the screen, the Cobra race will be coming up in just a few moments' time. They're finishing up the warm-up here, and I want to step back to a stat that you had mentioned earlier, and just think about this for a second. As you said, this track for a long time held the fastest average speed over the course of a lap until 1996. Remember, this place closed in 1968. So 60s machinery all the way up to Formula One cars at a modern street course at 1996. That's how fast these cars are going over the course of the lap. So just dwell on that a bit, and how quick this place is, how long these straights are.
Yeah, I mean, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to research what the average speed was back in 1968 at Longford, and then in comparison with Melbourne at Albert Park, you know, that's going to be an interesting stat to find out. While you're
doing that, I'm going to go through the starting grid for our Cobra race. Ascari Kantonen on the pole with Cito Visor. Starting next to him, you'll have Niels Santowski in third and Darren Andrews in the fourth position. From there, we've got Austin Birchfield in P5. Robin DeVos will be 6. Reese Gardner, not a good qualifying for him, down in 7th. Mark Jones in the number 26 will start from the 8th position. After that, it's Matt Wright in P9. Riley Wyans having a bit of an early exit there in qualifying in 10th. David Purchase 11th. And Nicholas Kirsten will be in the 12th position. From there, it's Max Schrappa in 13th. David Bossa-Celadon in 14th. And Carl Struhal in the 15th position, as the cars are getting ready for this second race. A lot more horsepower, as it looks like they're getting ready for the signal. There it is, and the green flag is out. Ooh, looks like the 31 of Santowski did not go as well. He's getting a bit swamped in behind them. It's hard to go 3 wide on this narrow street circuit, so hopefully they get this sorted out once they get down into the kink entering the viaduct.
They are thundering down into the viaduct for the first time. Look at the amount of scrabbling for traction already, Joe. A very different proposition. You're going from front-engined front-wheel drive to front-engined rear-wheel drive. You've got a lot more power. You've probably got at least 6 times the horsepower in these cars. And that just goes to show how... And they're going to be locking up under braking. As I've just seen, I think that was... more than likely Darren Andrews that was locking up under braking, or it might have been possibly Niels Santowski. No, it was Darren Andrews that was hard on the brakes in the Baskerville Hobbyist Racing number 7. But look at this air shot. Wonderful just seeing them all in a row, all 15 runners and riders literally on the same bit of tarmac. A little bit further back, Garner versus Kirsten for 8th, and Kirsten manages to get through under braking, but he might be a little bit late on the anchors. He's going to dive to the inside here, gets an assist from Gardner from behind, so a bit of rear damage sustained by the number 10 of Kirsten, but Kantonen has already got a big lead. He's cantering away from Via, the gap now 1.1 seconds.
He does not want to have a repeat of last time, although it looked like he was far deep into the corner. So is the number 13. Unfortunately, that's going to be Riley Wyans with another issue here on the first lap, much like with the minis. Cito already running down that number 72, trying to pull him back in, as it looks like Santowski's gone from attack to defense. Birchfield is on his rear bumper.
Yeah, this is going to be very, very close indeed, and more to the point. These drivers, you can get it 3 wide in a mini, not 3 wide. There's going to be a lock up here. That was Birchfield in the number 34. Yellow out in sector 3. There's the number 15 of DeVos. Robin de Vos from the Equipe Assen, running in the traditional orange colour of the Netherlands. He's running P6 at the moment. But Senkowski and Andrews are literally wheel to wheel heading down into the viaducts here on lap 2 out of 3. Senkowski squeezes Andrews a little bit, but manages to get through as they are flying over the crest into the viaducts and into Kingsbridge. And Andrews sends it back up the inside. He's going to be very, very careful negotiating this. Oh, Senkowski off.
And that may have been fully off. Yep, he has disappeared. He kind of got nudged, and unfortunately, there's a little bit of a fence there, so he must have gone to the other side, and that's going to be extremely costly. This now means that Cito is going to try and run away up at the front off of Ascari Cantonu, who's in second. Darren Andrews up to third. Birchfield gets promoted to fourth, and Robin DeVos into the top 5.
Right, you know that stat I was talking about, average speeds earlier on, Joe? Chris Amon from New Zealand set the lap record at Longford. The average speed was 196.7 kilometres an hour in 1968. That did not get broken until the 1996 Australian Grand Prix, that year won by Damon Hill in 1996, where Jack Villeneuve put it on pole. And then Hill won the race ahead of Villeneuve and Eddie Irvine. So their speeds would have been north of 200 plus kilometres an hour average speed. So that record lasted for the best part of nearly 30 years.
Just absolutely incredible. And that car we saw kind of getting shoved around was Reese Gardner for a brief moment. Oh, we got the 16 off now. That's Max Schrappa kind of facing the wrong way. He'll whip the car around in time to get it going. But now he's lost touch with the field. Remember, only 3 laps around here, so they're getting ready to get the white flag as they come around Mountford.
Yeah, we're going to see a replay here. Now, this is Andrews and Senkowski. Andrews gets through. Now, this is Senkowski. He got a tag from the 34 of Austin Birchfield, and Senkowski sent off into the greenery and exit stage left.
Yeah, and I believe there's a little bit of a creek there, so I don't know if he would have been able to try and carry on. So he's right now sitting in 14th, dead last on the field, unfortunately. Only lost Carl Struhal out of these cars so far, which is kind of impressive because we lost 3 of the minis. We've only lost 1 of the Cobras, which I would expect to be a little bit more of a handful. Cantonen trying to fight back and catch back up to Cito, but has not been able to get it any closer than about a second.
Yeah, it's been quite close between these two, as you can see. Ascari Cantonen, oh, back end. Oh, he drifts it coming through out of Longford. Oh, but that was Andrews off exit stage right. So Birchfield's got through. Gardner's just DNF'd in the number 94. So that's Reese Gardner, who won the mini race earlier on. But Ascari Cantonen completely sideways. So this is what happened to Max Schrappa. Oh, this is not going to bode well. Comes through the corner, gets a hit from the 11. That was Matt Wright. I don't think there was any intentional payback from what happened because they came together in the mini race earlier on. Schrappa was flying across the circuit. Matt Wright had nowhere to go. So Bacca Celadon has also retired. So we're down to 11 drivers, pretty much the same as what we had in the minis finishing in our opening race of day 2 here at Motorama. But Ascari Cantonen is making that tail wiggle on that number 72 Écurie Atlantique car and is catching Cito Vaya, but time and corners are fast running out for the Finn.
I spoke too soon on those retirements, unfortunately. Cito still holding about half a second, so Ascari has managed to close it down now. What can he do to complete the pass? So we're actually going to cut away real quick to Reese Gardner, see what happened to him. Just got a little wiggle, and into the hay bale he goes. But we come back live, and under braking, Cantonen's trying everything he can. He's right up to the rear of the car, but it's too little, too late. It's a solid exit for the number 1. And the Brabham Racing driver is going to take victory here at Longford in the Cobras.
Yeah, Ascari Cantonen and Austin Birchfield ran at the top 3. Great job there by Cito Vaya. Nicholas Kirsten and Darren Andrews ran at the top 5. Matt Wright takes 6th. And short wait until Mark Jones crosses the stripe. Riley Wyons, David Purchase and Niels Sentkowski rounding out the finishers. Of course, Robin de Vos we lost, along with David Bakker-Celadon, Rhys Gardner, Max Schapper, and Karl Struhal, who was the first retirement in this 3-lap Cobra race. Of course, we've got the handicap race, 5 laps, so a lot more kilometres to cover and a lot more fun to be had. Here comes Sentkowski. Could have been in the mix for at least a top 4, maybe a top 3 finish, but the Wilkes Sport number 31 crosses the stripe and is our last finisher in the Cobra race there, Joe.
I'm sure a little bit frustrating for him. And for our finishing order, as we said, Cito Veijer going to be taking the win here for the Cobras. To tell you how hard that Kantonen was pushing, it set the fastest lap of the race on that last lap, and it was 0.7 of a second quicker than Cito. So he was really on it. There is your finishing order, with the Brabham Motorsport driver coming away with the win, Kantonen with second, and then Austin Birchfield from Sebring International finishing P3. Nicholas Kirsten with an excellent run to third from farther down in the field, and Darren Andrews winding up in fifth. A bit up and down for him today for sure. Matt Wright in P6 and Mark Jones in seventh. Riley Wyans was P8 today after David Purchase brings it home in ninth. Robin DeVos, unfortunately, not able to make up for a good start to the race and having to settle for 10th position, as Sentowski is actually our last actual finisher, just because he got run off a little bit there in the viaduct. Celadon, Gardner, Schrappa, and Struhal were DNFs for race number 2. And as I said earlier, if you enjoyed both and you don't know which flavor you liked better, we're going to put your peanut butter in your chocolate, and you get to enjoy both cars at once with the handicap race here in just a moment time. And that is a real joy to watch, as the faster cars will have to try and run them down. And what I love about this format here, Alex, is that you literally don't know who's going to win it until right at the very end when the two classes catch each other.
Yeah, I think it's the old equation of the tortoise versus the hare. Anyone might remember that old childhood story. But yeah, I think it's going to provide us, we've got a longer distance to cover. So of course, instead of 3 laps, we've got 5 laps coming up. We've got a very different set of vehicles. As I said, front wheel drive, front engined for the Mini, and then front engined rear wheel drive for the Cobras. Yeah, I think it's going to be nip and tuck to see who's going to win. Of course, yesterday provided a lot of excitement. And today could be exactly the same here on day 2 of Motorama. I'm really looking forward to seeing how qualifying is going to go, and obviously how quickly it's going to be before we see, we're going to have our respective drivers in respective camps, those deciding to go with the Mini, which includes our good friend Nicholas Hillebrand. Oskari Kantonen's decided to go in the Mini, Rhys Gardner, David Bakker-Celadon. I think we're going to have Minis outfielding the Cobras on this one. But I mentioned earlier on that there was a famous Formula 1 journalist who originates from Australia, born in the UK, Peter Windsor, who also became press officer of the Australian Automobile Racing Club, the AARC, at the age of 17, and used to frequent as a spectator for the Tasman series back in the 60s. So I'm sure that if I send him the link and saying, yeah, you might remember this circuit, Peter, and he'll go, oh yeah, I'll remember that one. He's a good friend, but he's also been involved with a lot of motorsport. Joined for Williams full time in '85 as their manager of sponsorship and public affairs, and then also was a team boss at Williams. But he's done a lot of reporting in F1. Still does a lot on YouTube these days. But I'm sure that if he got to look at this one, I'm sure that he'll be going, yeah. That brings back some memories with Longford. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this race in just a few moments' time.
Glad to see the fans enjoying to getting to see themselves on camera a bit. We are watching, and we've been enjoying watching everybody have fun out on the track. Again, if you're here and you can hear us at Motorama, come on over to the Sims and give it a try and see how you do in these Cobras, the Minis, or even you can hop into the F1 or F3 car around here. Now, we're going to take a short break. However, we'll be back with the handicap race with both Minis and Cobras sharing the track at the same time. But in the meantime, we'll be back in just a moment.
Did you hear that Tas Petroleum Motorama is on bigger and better?
Is that just a guy thing?
It's for the whole family with something for everyone. Motorama is more than just cars and bikes.
Can we go? Can we go? Our rides are free.
Sure thing. Let's get our tickets.
Yay!
Get your heart racing and your adrenaline pumping at Tas Petroleum Motorama. October 26th to 27th, Simmons Plains Raceway. Go to motoramatas.com.au for tickets.
G'day guys, welcome to Motorama, a throwback to the great days of racing in Tasmania from 1953 through to 1968 at the wonderful Longford racetrack. A bit over 4 miles of racetrack, the fastest track in the Southern Hemisphere, attracted 7 Formula One world champions in that period of time. Today and tomorrow, you get to race on this fabulous piece of track in cars from the era. Wish you all good luck, have fun with it, and enjoy Longford.
Well, love seeing what they've done here with these sim rigs. Can't thank Wuchu enough for setting this up. The HRSC, of course, for helping organize and run these races and get people a shot at these cars. But like we've been talking about, I mean, you and I both love our vintage history in motorsports. And that's one thing I love about sim racing here, Alex, is it lets us relive those eras. It lets us appreciate these cars and with a lot less danger than it would be trying to hop into the real thing.
Yeah, considering if you're at the Goodwood Festival of Speed, the Goodwood Revival, you have a praying in one of those beauties, it's going to cost you a good penny or two at least to get everything back to normal. But yeah, I think with the way that sim racing is now, so many mods that can be done. Obviously, we're running on the rFactor 2 platform, one of the most known platforms in sim racing globally. It's great to see that we can parlay this kind of racing to a modern day audience who haven't had the opportunity to see them race around a track back in the 60s because they weren't born then. It really gives us this opportunity to keep this historic part of motorsport alive, albeit in a virtual sense, but it still gives you, as I said, you know, the goosebump situation where the adrenaline's coursing through your veins like, you know, high octane fuel, and it just gives you that sort of like look back. And with the way that physics and dynamics have been developed for sims these days, especially simulator platforms, with the way that things are so easy to modify, there's a lot of hard work that goes on behind the scenes, especially with HRSC, of course, Wuchu, Nicholas Hilbrand, 2 of the most prolific people that we know that are so in touch with this community. And there's so many retro sim racing leagues. I mean, I was commentating on a virtual World Sports Car Championship at the old 10-kilometer layout of Monza, which include the banking, a few hours ago, and it was wall-to-wall, full throttle for an hour and a half, and it was captivating. And that's what we love about this sport. It's the history, it's the pantheon of what has happened in decades past. You want to keep that alive.
Absolutely. And this crew for HRSC is really very much doing that. They have a number of of series that they run in classic cars of various areas. We actually, over the course of this year, did a classic Trans Am series with the 70s sports cars around all kinds of classic North American tracks. That was an absolute joy, and love getting to see a track that I honestly did not know about until I got to call a race here a couple months ago. Was not as familiar, and have definitely been entranced by it now that got to appreciate it. And you talked about how this was in rFactor 2. One of the cool things about it is that, like I said, Wuchu put this together, and it was a labor of love. But it is now an official part of rFactor 2. It's now official content that you can get for that sim. So that tells you just how good of a track he's put together.
Oh, 100%. I mean, like, you see the attention to detail, like the wooden fences. You don't see that around a modern course, even a street circuit, with these barriers that we normally see in modern day motorsport. But it's you see the lampposts, you see the trees, you see the wooden fencing surrounding houses. It's that kind of attention to detail which shows that passion, a labor of love, can be brought in to become official RF2 content. And Wuchu's done a fantastic job with how this circuit is. It's period reflective, and I just love it. I can't think of anything else to say on that matter.
Yeah, and even down to advertising banners at the side of the track. Yeah, just so cool. As we said before, we've got a number of races. We're just about halfway through. As you can see here, as we're getting ready to start the Mini versus Cobra handicap race. And then we're going to have the open wheelers. So that's going to be both the F1 and the F3s. Now, that's going to be run like a more traditional multi-class race, even though you don't usually have multi-class open wheelers. But they will be racing each class without any sort of handicap holding them back. They'll all start at the same time. But we'll get to that in a moment. In the meantime, these cars will... these two cars that we've been watching will now share the track. And the interesting thing is they're going to have their starting order according to where they finished in that race for the car that they're starting. Here's the track they're going to be racing on, in case you're just joining us over at Motorama or online. This is Longford according to its 1967 format, 9 corners, just over 7 kilometers, and about 4.5 miles if you're not on the metric system. And it looks like it is simple. And while it is very fast and there's a long bits of straightaways where you're just foot to the floor, the braking zones are very tricky for a number of these turns. The viaduct, we've seen drivers trying to slam on the brakes as they plunge downhill and have to steer the car off to the right. And then it's a tricky chicane with no room for error, with the walls on either side, the hay bales ready to collect you. And Longford Corner needed to get that run all the way across down to Tannery, which has that little bit of a jink off to the right, which can catch you out. And Newry Corner, as we saw, has that run up through the bridge uphill, where it's very narrow across that bridge. That is the long bridge that you cross at that stage. But that takes you onto the Flying Mile, where you really need to be on the throttle as soon as you can out of Newry, because that is the longest straight of the track and goes into the slowest corner down at Mountford to wrap it up. Probably the most straightforward corner on the lap, I have to say, as well, despite it being the quickest entry. But here we go, Mini versus Cobra handicap race. I know you said you got to watch the previous one, so what's your prediction here, Alex? Which class is going to come away the winner?
I'm gonna put it for the underdog. I'm gonna put the Mini Cooper ahead of the Cobra on this one.
All right, so a double win for the Mini Coopers. If you're following Alex's logic here, we'll see if that's the case. I'll take the opposite here. I'm going to say that the Cobras are going to catch them this time, because I feel like those that raced them probably had learned from last time. They're just in a bit of a warm-up currently, and actually, as soon as I say that, this session is switching over. So we're heading over to grid up here just seconds from now for the drivers to get ready. Remember, Cobras or minis are going to be released first, and then it will be the Cobras. You can disregard some of the images that you're going to see here on the grid. Those will not be accurate. Reese Gardner will be starting on the pole with Nicholas Hillebrand starting from second, and Nicholas Kirsten in P3. Oskari Kantonen will be from fourth today. Max Schrappa will be P5. David Bossa-Celadon in 6, and Carl Struhal in the 7th spot. Then it'll be Matt Wright starting from P8 for Sussex Engineering. After that, Mark Johnson starts in 9th. Cito Weiher will be P10. Darren Andrews 11th, and Austin Birchfield in 12th. Then we head back to the last few cars starting this race. Mark Jones 13th, Riley Wyans 14th, David Purchase 15th, and Neil Santowski 16th. One more car will be Robin DeVos at the very back of it for Ekip Asen. There it is. Green flag is out. And, somebody didn't get the message. I think that was Robin DeVos taking off maybe a little bit instinctively there. But the minis will get practically a full lap to try and dash off into the distance before we release these Cobras.
Yeah, I think that might have been Carl Strahal that ended up going exit stage left on the start-finish straight, heading into the viaduct. So Nicholas Hillebrand in second place. Oskari Kantonen trying to get through on Nicholas Kirsten. Good move there underneath the King's Bridge. And they're still kicking up the dust, of course. The Mini Cooper, not only agile as a touring car, but also as a rally car, having won the Monte Carlo rally in the mid-1960s. And now you can hear the brakes squeaking as they go through into Tannery Corner. And it's going to be the run up here towards Longbridge, over the South Esk River, and then over the railroad tracks. And then they're going to be hard on the brakes very shortly into Newry Corner very shortly. So again, Joe, it's just the minis have the opportunity to scarper away. They've got a big lead. And now Oskari Kantonen trying to pull to the left-hand side of Nicholas Hillebrand. This could be close for second.
Yeah, the last thing they want to do is hold each other up on this first lap. They need every ounce of speed they can get, but at the same time, they want to win the race. It was Reese Gardner who did it last time. He's on his way to try and do it again, and Kantonen's going to get fed out, unfortunately, by Hillebrand, who was unwilling to give way.
Yeah, I mean, at that point on the circuit, as they're now coming through, that's actually over Longbridge now, so they've gone through Tannery Corner, now into Newry Corner, and then you've got to line yourself up. Put the pedal to the metal over the crest here, and then it's going to be very tight heading into Newry Corner, and then going down the dip, and then onto the iconic Flying Mile. And now, well, we're going to see how close the closing rates are on board with the number 72 of Oskari Kantonen, as the drivers now at full throttle. They're going to be, well, Nicholas Hillebrand's just punched in 200 kilometers an hour. That's 120 miles an hour. But look at the closing rates from Oskari Kantonen behind Nicholas Kirsten. He's getting very close on the run down to Mountford Corner. Kirsten pulls the right-hand side of Hillebrand, hard into the braking zone. They're going to go very shortly. Is Kirsten going to dive up the inside of the number 70? He's going to give it a try. They're wheel to wheel. This could open the door for Kantonen, as now the Cobras are released on their first lap here.
Remember, 30 seconds a lap faster, typically, these cars, and boy, the speed difference is apparent now watching them in comparison to those minis. This one being led by Cito Weiher, who just won in the Cobras in the previous race. So he's going to try and use that as best he can. Reese Gardner still leading in the minis as we're watching them following through. Still the battle for second between three cars, and someone's lost it. No, somehow Nicholas Kirsten gathers it up as that car looked very sideways from above.
Well, we saw him going very sideways into Tannery Corner, didn't we, on the opening lap of the mini race earlier on today. So that's just probably a precursor. So Hillebrand's got to keep his eyeballs on stalks as Kantonen looking to go up the inside through here at Tannery Corner, as that was Kirsten going wide again. Now over the railroad tracks they go once more. That's not going to be easy. That's not going to be plain sailing for Kirsten, because he knows that Hillebrand, if you saw the move that Nicholas Hillebrand did to take second place last corner, last lap, well, Hilbrand is keeping in the wheel tracks of Kirsten. Kantonen now going to make it a double slipstream for the number 72 from Finland. And they are literally attached at the bumpers at the moment. Hilbrand looking for the move up the inside into the next right-hander. Lock up of the front left from Kirsten. Going into that right-hand corner. Garner goes rally crossing again. But he keeps the throttle pin. Now they're going to go through in towards Longbridge. A little bit further back, that was Max Schapper behind Matt Wright. Slightly going exit stage left out of the same corner. Oh, no. That's Kirsten rolling. And that is Kirsten's race. I think that it's just come to an abrupt halt. And that car picked up a lot of damage. Has he got it going again? Yes, he has. But he's going to be the first one possibly at the mercy of the AC Cobras, who will be catching, because Kirsten's down to 9th. Sidovaya, who leads the Cobras as they complete their opening lap out of 5, is now 90 seconds behind Nicholas Kirsten. Expect that gap. We're going to see a moment here for Robin de Vos, from Equipe Assen. Oh, that was straight on under brakes. Used the runoff area at Tannery Corner, just by the flour mill and the pub. Oh, that was the number 34, Birchfield. And Sidovaya's lost. Sido's off on his roof. 3 wheels on that wagon. That is not going anywhere, but that is Birchfield off again. Well, Sidovaya from Brabham Motorsport, his race has just gone south very quickly whilst leading.
Wow. So that's going to be costly, because that was the leading car. So that means maybe a couple seconds or just about a second back to Darren Andrews that they've lost now. Remember, it was about 4 seconds between them at the line. So they're going to need everything they can to try and bring this one home and beat what is now Nicholas Hillebrand leading up at the front of the Mini. So they've caught and passed Reese Gardner. Something dramatic must have happened, because Reese is all the way down into 5th, actually. So both have seen the leaders have serious issues on this second lap.
I would have thought so. I mean, looking at the sector times, Reese Gardner. Okay, here's a replay. So that is Kirsten, barrel rolling like a good one, gets the car going again. And then we've got the battle here. Now, this is for the lead. We've got Darren Andrews versus Neil Senkowski. So the Wilkesport car versus the Baskerville Hobbyist Racing car. But Reese Gardner lost a lot of time. I think it was sector 2 on lap 2. We're on lap 3 now, as Hillebrand's got a lead of just under a 1/10 of a second. Kantonen's probably got the headlights on again and is right up. Yes, he's right up the exhaust pipe.
They're bump drafting, I'm pretty sure.
They are. Kantonen's getting a really good run on Hillebrand, as we've got another yellow out in sector 3. So obviously a drama befalling. Oh, that's Andrews. Andrews has gone. Now this is the moment. Oh, Reese Gardner locks up. Oh, and hits the barriers. Now that is uncustomary. Reese Gardner rejoins nearly into the path. He did the old Russ Swift J-turn there, and that was going down into Mountford Corner. So he's dropped it on the final turn whilst under brakes, and the car just hits the barriers. Does a 360 rejoin backwards. Now Oskari Kantonen closing in once again on Nicholas Hillebrand, going down this part of the track. And this is one of the fastest part of the circuits that they're negotiating. I think they're on their way down the Flying Mile as we speak.
And I'm pretty sure that there's a truce going on right now, the way that they're picking up speed. From what I can tell, they're doing about 4 to 5 kilometers per hour quicker down the straightaway for long periods of time, which can add up. So will this come to make a difference when they get to the checkered flag? Because they seem to be trying to work together to try and get as much distance as they can. And that must have been one of the wheels of the other cars that the 72 just clipped coming down into Mountford. Yeah,
well, just doing a quick conversion rate, 204 kilometers an hour recorded by Oskari Kantonen. That's 126 miles an hour in a 1960s Mini Cooper. And we've got this and one more to go. Now, we're going to have a look again. Oh, Sidovaya just lost it completely going underneath the King's Bridge. Collects the right front with the wall, with the part of the bridge. Knocks off the right front. And that was his race done and dusted. So, wheel off, upright, hub. Everything asunder from the the Cobra. We've also had Riley Wyans, one of the another one of the Cobras that has ended up retiring from the race, and now Mark Jones in the Motorama number 26 leads the Cobra classification and is 41 seconds off of Nicholas Kirsten, who we saw going rolling a little bit earlier on in the race. But Nicholas Hildbrand now starting to pull a little bit of daylight between himself and Ascari Kantonen. Hildbrand 47, a mid 47.5 in sector 1. Kantonen a low 47.9. So Hildbrand is trying to pull that gap, but Kantonen again is rolling it back in, and he's line astern with them. Meantime, Schrapper and Wright battling away over P3, and Wright from the Sussex Engineering number 11 has got through, but Schrapper's going to have the inside line for the next right-hander.
Yeah, Sintowski had something go wrong in the second sector of the last lap, because remember, he was leading this. Now he's about 3.5 seconds behind, so he must have had a mistake. This is going to be fascinating because last time it was so close, but now we've had multiple issues for our Cobras. Jones, will he have enough to try to run them down? Boy, Matt Wright having quite the fight here for the third position, the last podium step with the number 16, who's going to dive it down to the inside of Newry and elbow his way through. They come together a second time, and in behind, is that Reese Gardner actually catching up?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. He's only 0.3 of a second behind. I mean, the thing was, Matt Wright had complete torque steer going through that particular part of the circuit, coming through Newry Corner. And then Max Schrapper, Reese Gardner, do not tell me you're going to do a Nico Hildbrand. He's going to try and do it. He's gone 2 wheels on the dust on the right-hand side down the fastest part of the circuit, down at the Flying Mile. They are 3 wide as Hildbrand and Kantonen line astern, as we're going to head on to the white flag lap very shortly. Where's Gardner factoring in? He's got through on Schrapper. Schrapper now trying to go up the inside, possibly into Mountford Corner. Gardner's got the job done this time. This time, no problems for the number 94 as Wright just hits the part of the ditch, the divot on the left-hand side coming out of Mountford Corner, and Reese Gardner going into the white flag lap is now 3rd place.
Gets a 2 for 1 thanks to his bravery. So here's Darren Andrews and his incident. Big one coming in, and that explains why we saw the tire at the side of the road a little bit earlier. Max Schrapper fighting back against Reese Gardner, going wheel to wheel, coming down into the viaduct. Gardner's going to have the inside into the chicane and has to get his elbows out. The two are going to bang doors. He somehow keeps that from becoming a major wreck, and it is absolutely wild on this final lap. Remember, this is just for essentially 3rd just within these cars, let alone we don't know where they're going to wind up in the total order.
But keep your eyes on what's happening between Nicholas Kirsten in 8th and Mark Jones, the leading Cobra. The gap is coming down significantly. Was at 1.12 seconds, now under 5. Robin de Vos has just gone quickest out of the Cobras. He's 4th in that rate, 4th in that class as Mark Jones. All snaking under braking in the Motorama number 26 as that is Nicholas Kirsten right in front. That is going to be now 2.3 seconds as the car gets 4 wheels airborne over the railroad tracks. And look at the closing rate of speed. Mark Jones to the outside. Oh, it was... And now still, Wright and Schrapper, they've got some... I don't know what's going on here. Schrapper's got his elbows out, the AMX Racing Team number 16, and now he's got Reese Gardner. They've dropped Wright like a bad habit. But at the moment, Hildbrand's still leading the way. They've just gone through Sector 2 for the final time. Well, it was Reese Gardner who won the Mini Cobra race yesterday. Hildbrand looking to make it 2 for 2 for the Minis. But Mark Jones, look at how... And he's got past... Well, Kirsten's got through. Sentkowski's got through on Kirsten. Strahal is now overtaken.
Is too far.
Yeah, this is going to be way too far. If you had Sidorvaya, then I would probably say that he would maybe be on the back of this battle for the race leaders. We're coming down to Mountford Corner for the final time. Hilbrand's lost the lead to Cantonen, who's sideways. Oh, Hilbrand! Hilbrand, what on earth was that? He's just clattered into the side of Cantonen into Mountford Corner on the final lap. Oh my goodness
he touched
me.
the dirt and he lost control, but he's going to come away the winner, the 26. Just chucking it in. Nicholas Hildebrand will win the handicap race. No, excuse me, he's handed it over to Oskari Cantonen. He did not feel right taking that win, and that just about cost them because Mark Jones did get to them right at the end, but was not able to take the victory. That was closer than it probably should have been, and I think the top two are probably going to feel a little bit sheepish about that last corner.
I think there were definitely handbags at dawn being thrown, especially from exit stage right from Nicholas Hildebrand. But what can you say about a handicap race like that? Incredible, incredible stuff. Elbows out, sharpened. Mini versus Cobra. Mini taking the top honours again for the second day in a row. Well done, Mini. Sorry, just had to put that out there. But yeah, calamity at the final corner. I mean, Cantonen was all kind of sideways under braking with the inside line, and then Hilbrand just loses it as well. It just goes to show, folks, it ain't easy in sim racing, especially with no assists at all in this retro, this retro race kind of era.
What a handicap race, which brings us the chance to go over our results. Cantonen, your winner, with Hildebrand coming home in second. Mark Jones right behind them. It was down to probably even closer than last time and less than those 4 seconds, as Max Schrappa did finish fourth and Matt Wright fifth. Reese Gardner P6 this time instead of the win. You have to go all the way down to seventh for the next of our Cobras. Neil Santowski did a good job to come back after his issues into seventh. Mark Johnson was P8 and David Purchase was ninth. Robin DeVos wound up in P10. From there, it's Carl Struhal, who was in 11th. Nicholas Kirsten, P12, and David Basaceladon was 13th. DNFs for the remainder of our Cobras: Birchfield, Wyans, Andrews, and Hildebrand. Wow, that was quite the disastrous run for our Cobras here today, but certainly a lot of fun to watch. And we're not even done here, Alex, because now we get to the open wheel machinery.
Yes, and also for those that know their Tasman Series history, the series ran from 1964 to 1975. Of course, Longford was there from 64 until 68, and of course, back in, you look at it. Coming back to bits of trivia, of course, Joe, you had to tell me to hold my horses a little bit earlier on, but now we can get a little bit of trivia for you. Of course, the F1 car is going to be the BT20, run by Sir Jack Brabham in 1966. It was an F1 Drivers and Constructors Championship winning Grand Prix car. Of course, Jack Brabham, the last person to win a championship with his car bearing his name on it. One of the true garagistas, and of course the Brabham name lasted until the 1990s. Of course, Williams, until its recent acquisition in the last couple of years by Derillion Capital, was the true last garagista F1 team, of course run by Claire and the late Sir Frank Williams, who without teams like this in Formula One, it wouldn't be what it is now. Of course, Jack Brabham won in a Cooper back in 1960, also won in 67 in the 2.5 litre Brabham BT23A, and that was the Tasman Series finale at this very circuit. But that year, Lotus, thanks to the efforts of the late Jim Clark, won the overall title in the 67 Tasman Series. So back in those days, the Tasman Series were running 2.5 litre engines, and in 66 the F1 cars were running 3 litre engines at that point. So the F1 cars were the Tasman Series cars were more powerful than the F1 cars because they went from a 1.5 litre engine to 3 litres in 66. So, of course, you then had the likes of Ferrari, Lotus, McLaren, Cooper, and, of course, BRM, a mark that we don't really hear of within modern-day motorsport, but back in the 50s and the 60s, companies like BRM, companies like Van Wall were really part and parcel of the the new thinking when people were thinking, yeah, we're going to stick the engine in the front. And then, of course, John Coote, the likes of Colin Chapman brought in the idea of sticking the engine behind the driver. And that's how modern Formula One now has been right up until this point and continues to be the same. It's the same with the LMDH class in the FIA One Endurance Championship. So, now we go back to retro F1, retro F3. I'm really looking forward to it. It's just going to be hearing those 3 litre engines of those Brabham BT20s. It is going to be a fantastic sight to behold, Joe.
Yeah, I have a soft spot for open wheels because that's what I grew up really idolizing and adoring, and seeing these old cars, these old cigar tube style bodies, is so entrancing to watch. I did find out, I'm told that this F3 car is essentially modeled after the Matra MS5-6, which was an F3 car from that era. So this, I believe, one of the more custom ones that they've brought into rFactor 2 to get to race here. But definitely will be, another one that's accurate to the era, as we see the driver or our new sim racers get used to the setup and kind of learn their way through. I love that they've got the whole pedal and manual shifter set up there, so you can really get the full experience, and drivers get to learn. It looks like some drivers even maybe getting some of their first taste of getting behind the wheel.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, the MS5 was actually Matra's final Formula 3 car, based on the original MS1, and the good thing is, I mean, that there were still, the MS5s were built in 1965, 5 of them in total, and more followed, and some remained in racing use until 1969. You had the likes of Henri Pescarolo, of course, a man known in French endurance racing, obviously with the Pescarolo racing team, of course, fielding one Sébastien Loeb in the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Jean-Pierre Jabouille, also one of their drivers at that point, and that's one of the cool things, that we're going to have F1 and F3 rounding out what's been a fantastic weekend at Motorama, as we are underway with time qualifying for the final time here for day 2.
Exactly. So this is Reese Gardner in one of the Brabhams that you're watching, the 94, getting himself a nice little tow once again, and don't have any times on the board yet. But woof, and you can see just how tricky these cars are. I said it last night, and I'll say it again today. Expect the attrition rate to be a little bit higher than what we saw in the sports cars a bit ago, because these things are a handful, and they're a bit more fragile as well. But Reese Gardner getting it woed up down under the viaduct and kicking up a little bit of dust there in front of him as we watch the cars try to test the limits of the track. One thing that you can do as well, if you want to see more of this circuit as it really was, Wuchu was doing a good job of really giving us a lot more info and help giving us some tidbits here to talk about. And he linked us to a video to the 1964 weekend here at Longford. It's called Long Weekend at Longford. If you want to look it up on YouTube, that's all you got to do, to search for it. And the actual film from that era with the classic narration and classic footage, everything. And you could see how these actual cars would handle around here, and just how thrilling and dangerous it was to try and race these vehicles around this circuit. And more than that, some of the classic names. I mean, you'll see names like McLaren and such show up for this race, and they show them even taking the cars off of the boat. That's how big this was, which is the thing that shocks me, that I didn't know about it, because like we were talking about earlier, big names. Ferrari competed here. As I mentioned, McLaren competed. We had Cooper as well, all taking their vehicles out to try and test their hands on the rims of the South.
Well, also, there's a big correlation between the Brabham BT20, which made its debut in '66 at the French Grand Prix, with Denny Hulme actually being the first driver to be behind the wheel. Jack didn't actually take part until round 8 of that season. Is the engine. Repco, who are the title sponsors of the Supercars Championship now, who are an Australian automotive engineering and retailer company, it was their name emblazoned on the 3-litre V8 behind the driver on these cars. And, you know, one of the beautiful things about this car that it didn't just run under the Brabham brand, it also ran under Guy Ligier, who was a French team owner and also a racing driver. John Love, who was a Rhodesian driver who decided to found Team Gunston in '68. Charles Vogler Racing, that name, and then also we had the Jack Holm Racing team running with Peter de Klerk from South Africa, who was non-classified in his home Grand Prix in 1969. So the BT20 did really great work, of course, winning 2 titles that year in the World Constructors Championship back in '66 and '67. It just goes to show that these cars have a lot more lineage when they were used by the main team, but then individuals went, well, these cars are pretty quirky, but they're good. They're good cars. They're championship-winning cars. So people would go and buy them off of Jack Brabham. And it just goes to show how much folklore there is behind these kind of 1960s cars. Of course, the BT20 replaced by the BT24 after the 2 championship-winning years. But yeah, you can see with Nicholas Kirsten at the moment, I mean, what are we running? 2-minute 8s at the moment with Rhys Gardner. Oscar Canton's just gone purple in Sector 1, and he's just put in a 37.0. And that gap between him and Gardner for pole position in the Brabham BT20s is just over 5.5 tenths of a second. Nicholas Kirsten is leading the F3 brigade on a 2:35. So big speed disparity we've got again. Oscar Canton, well, look at this. Rhys Gardner has just clocked 186 miles an hour. That's 300 kilometers kph. That is about the speed of a current modern day Repco Supercars Australia racing car going down Conrod Straight at Mount Panorama in Bathurst as part of the Repco Bathurst 1000, which recently took place. Someone has just ended up with a wheel off their car. Might have been a rear tyre. Not too sure who that was from, but yeah, Rhys Gardner has closed in that gap. He's just put in a 2-minute 9.590. Oscar Cantonen, however, look at the lap time. Matt Wright in the Sussex Engineering, getting it all crossed up. He's knocked one of the hay bales, and airtime ahoy for the number 11 from Sussex Engineering over the railroad tracks. Incredible to see these cars in action here.
Yeah, last night we were comparing it to Smokey and the Bandit, or the Dukes of Hazzard, really, just watching them get up into the air across there. It certainly is wild to watch. Not something you really get with modern motorsports, unless you're in rallycross, or you mentioned the stadium super trucks. They're not supposed to leave the ground these days. And
Right.
Nicholas Kirsten doing a very good job, as you mentioned, with our quickest time down in the F3, but it is Canton and leading Rhys Gardner I think he just recently took that away, because Rhys Gardner was at the front of the F1s.
Yeah, Oscar Canton, 2-minute 7.967. We're coming to the last minute and 30. Steph Hellman's at the EB Manufacturing number 58 car. Nicholas Hilbrand's just gone P2 in the F3s. He's just gone half a second slower than Nicholas Kirsten, who's just done a 4th lap in this qualifying session. But Rhys Gardner has pitted the number 94. Kevin Strahal in the Number 53 Eve F3 vehicle has also pitted. Nicholas Kirsten has pitted, but I'll be interested to see as we're coming down to the final 45 seconds or so of this qualifying session. You're now going to see the closing rate of knots. That was Matt Wright flying past Steph Hermans as if he was standing still. And we're going to see probably top speeds of around 220 kilometers an hour. There's Nicholas Hilbrand getting all four wheels airborne in the Eve Sports Motorama number 70. And he's getting a little bit of a slipstream here, so maybe this might give him an opportunity to close in. He's just done a personal best in Sector 1, 43.686. That is nearly 4/10 quicker than Nicholas Kirsten. So the pole position in the F3 class could be under threat with 5 seconds on the timer remaining.
Oof, that was a squirrely little moment for the car in behind him, DeVos. But yeah, Hillebrand using every tool in the toolbox to try and get what speed he can. Needed to make up 0.6 of a second to take the pole away in the F3 category from Kirsten. Kirsten's also parked it. He's done with his qualifying. That's not going to help. This is on to the long flying mile here that Hillebrand is now entering. So that little bit of wheel spin off the corner will cost him.
That could cost him big time there, Joe. But he has gone personal best in Sector 2, 55.3. Pole could still be on for Hillebrand in the F3 class, but that's about how he hits the brakes, hits the anchors going into Mountford Corner for the final time. As the checker is out for the session, Oskari Kantonen will take pole position for this F1 F3 extravaganza to close out day 2 of our sim racing coverage for Motorama, as Robin DeVos just bangs the barriers. So Hillebrand, will he go quicker than a 2:35.506? He's pedal to the metal, and he goes quickest. He goes quickest by 7/100ths. What a lap from Nico Hillebrand there to put the number 70 Motorama Eve F3 on pole position for the class down in 9th. Great job.
7/100ths over 4.5 miles as well. That's amazing. Cito Vire is coming around to complete his qualifying. He's down in 5th, which is a bit surprising. He seemed to be fast in the other cars earlier today. Maybe the open wheel's not agreeing with him. There we go. That's up to 3rd. That seems a little bit more representative for him, as that ends our qualifying session now.
Yeah, so not that long left, folks, until the final race of day 2 for Motorama. Big thank you to Taz Petroleum, Quality Fuel and Lubricants for supporting the event, as well as all the other partners that have jumped on board for this year's event. And a big thank you to Wuchu as always. But open wheel race up next. Oh, I know it's the last race of the day, Joe, but you know what? This is a great way to end it.
It absolutely is. And we ended it on a high note last night. So we'll have a high bar to try and step up to, but I think they can put on a pretty good show, especially now that all of these drivers, or at least the vast majority of them, have the experience of last night's race to kind of go by and use that to help try and get a few more cars to the finish for one, but also to make even more intensive racing. I mean, it's going to be hard to top us having the leaders battling side by side for multiple corners on the final lap last time. But I have a feeling they'll have a good shot at it. And while we're thanking people, a big thank you to everybody here that's been watching, that's come to the Motorama, that's enjoying both the sim racing here on the sim rigs and our event that we're providing to you here online with all of our various sim racers. But warm up now underway with about 2 minutes to go. We're going to get ready to grid up. So if you are here, make sure and stick around to watch this last race that we've got for the afternoon.
A big thank you to all our online viewers that have joined us over the last couple of days as well. It's been a real hoot with myself, Joe Peake, Joey Attlebury, providing the play-by-play, announcing calls. And you know what, when I got the call from Christian a few hours ago saying, look, can you jump in? I looked and I thought, let's check out the stream first. Let's see what I'm dealing with. And I thought, you know what? Why the heck not? And I'm so glad I did. Thank you, Christian, for giving me a last-minute call up. The bat phone was definitely engaged on Discord at that point.
I'm glad you joined us. It's been cool getting your perspective, especially on the minis and of course all the history of hello to everybody now taking a look at the broadcast here. But yeah, that's looking at all that's been going on for the race. But yeah, getting the perspective, because yes, I've tried to study my history over here in the States with Formula One and of course all the Australian motorsports. Especially love learning about this beautiful Tasmanian track, but there's so much more that you've kind of clued me into that I didn't get earlier in my research for this upcoming race. So it's been a lot of fun getting your thoughts and input on this one. Hopefully we'll give you as well a good send-off.
Yeah, so warm up. We're about 30 seconds away from giving the drivers the last little moment of around the Longford Circuit. So yeah, we are going to see a big amount of speed differential. You're probably talking the best part of nearly 70 kilometers an hour between the fastest Brabham BT20s and the EVE F3 cars. You know, the EVE F3 cars will probably top out at about 220 kilometers an hour. We've been seeing speeds as high as 293 kilometers an hour, most predominantly from Sid Elvire from Brabham Motorsport. Of course, the Brabham name still very much involved. Of course, David, son of Sir Jack, now based these days just outside of within the UK, runs his own esports team. Of course, the Brabham BT62, bringing the Brabham name back into motorsport with a bang as a GT2 car. But looks like we're gridding up for the 5 laps for the final race here on day 2, Joe.
Indeed. Get ready for a show on this one. 2 classes racing at the same time, and on the pole it's going to be Oskari Kantonen with Reese Gardner starting in P2. They'll face off once again. Cito Vire will be P3 with Max Schrappa starting in the 4th position. From there, 5th will be Matt Wright. Neil Santowski starts in 6th. Again, you can ignore the pictures. They're in the F1 cars. Mark Jones in 7th and David Baca Celadon starting in 8th. Nicholas Hillebrand will be P9 as Nicholas Kirsten starts in 10th. Those will be your front row for the F3s. Hermans and Birchfield in 11th and 12th as well. Mark Johnson starts in 13th, and it's David Purchase P14. Robin DeVos in the 15th spot, followed by Carl Struhal in 16th to round out our field. They should be going shortly here. There's the signal. They wait for the flag man. And they're being held a bit. There it is. Green flag is out. Oh, no. It looks like Kantonen did not go. He pulls off to the side. Miraculously, everybody is able to avoid him, so we don't have a wreck off the line, but he goes straight to the back of everyone.
But he nearly got a bit of a jump start there, did the Finn. But that's allowed Reese Gardner to hold the early advantage. Max Schrappa diving up the inside in towards Kingsbridge through on Sid Elvire. Incredible work there by the number 16 to get through, but Vire closing back in at him. And of course, Sir Jack Brabham winning the event at the Tasman Series back in 1967. You can bet your bottom dollar that Sid Elvire will try and uphold a little bit of history, albeit being in the virtual sense of Oskari Kantonen, closing in on the F3 leader, Nicholas Hillebrand, who is ahead of Austin Birchfield and Mark Johnson. Well, make that Carl Struhal as Mark Johnson. Oh, we've had 2 DNFs already. Steph Hermans and Nicholas Kirsten have come a cropper early doors, but Sid Elvire slingshotting his way past Max Schrappa very, very quickly, but Schrappa back on the offensive. Oh, and Schrappa's gone straight on, did he? I think he did. Well, what on earth has happened to Max Schrappa? Because Reese Gardner is in 2nd. Oh, there he is. He's found the local wildlife.
Yep, that's one of the unique quirks here is they have runoff, but it's literally out into a farmer's field. So you go through the gates and you're saved, but then you got to really turn around and make your way back to the track. Gardner leads Cito with Neil Santowski now picking up the torch for that 3rd position. But look at the gap that he's got to make up. It's a long ways up to that duo.
Yeah, but Vire's now going to pull to the right-hand side of Gardner. They are wheel to wheel nearly, very much in the sense of Senna versus Mansell back in 1991. And Vire is edging ahead of Gardner. He's going to possibly have the inside line for the next corner. And Via is going to be heavy on the brakes, so is Garner. Via gets through. That's a great run through Mountford Corner. So after the opening lap, Sido Via's leading, but Reece Gardner is giving him the hustle. This race is far from over. Nicholas Hildebrand leads Austin Birchfield. We've lost 4. Oh no, that is not what you wanted to happen. Over the long bridge, Steph Hermans, David Purchase, Nicholas Kirsten and Mark Johnson decimate 50% of our Eve F3 field within the opening lap. That is absolutely crazy. Now it's between Hildebrand, Birchfield, DeVos and Struhal. And Hildebrand's already got a 4.5 second lead after the opening lap.
Yeah, we have to remember that Kirsten started that one on the front row, so that was a blown opportunity, unfortunately, for the 10 car. Well, the battle for the F1 lead rages on. Cito versus Reese down the Tannery straight up into the 90-degree right-hand corner of Tannery Corner. And they're going to be side by side once again. We saw this a lot in yesterday's race between the leaders, except it was 3 cars fighting for it last time. Will they be caught by Sinkowski before this is over? Oh no, a mistake from Gardner, and he's lost the lead, and it looks like he's going to try to get it going, but that car looks very damaged. Vier's got a huge gap now at the front.
Yeah, the back end's crabbing. Back end's crabbing on the right rear, I fear, for Reece Gardner, of course. With these single-seater open-wheel cars, he's taken out part of the signage as well. That, I think, has caused the put the nail in the proverbial coffin for Southpaw Developments. Reece Gardner in the number 94. He lost it big time whilst battling away with Cito Via, who now has a nigh on 3.2 second lead over the number 31 of Neil Senkowski. Matt Wright rounds out the top 3. Gardner still trying to run the car, but you can look how much he's correcting with the steering. So here's a replay off the circuit, spins it right in front of Via, who was so lucky he didn't T-bone Gardner into the local scenery.
Exactly, and we don't know if he hit him hard enough that maybe it damaged the aero of the car. You need it to be clean on a track like this, and it's down to 2.5 seconds. Remember, it was 3 before, so he's been reeled in a bit by Niels as we ride on board with Cantonen now, fighting for 4th place. Going to go side by side with Celadon, and it is narrow through here. Too narrow for 2 cars as they both clatter into the fence.
I think that was too much risk versus reward there from Oskari Cantonen. Mark Jones is the first of the Brabham BT20 F1 cars that has retired, and that brings us down to 11 runners and riders in this race, but that was not, and Reece Gardner has DNF'd.
Too much damage.
So this is Mark Jones off the circuit, bang, into the post. Oh, and took out some of the surrounding hay bales, but managed to avoid the spectators. Max Schrapper in the number 16, the AMX Racing Team driver, currently running P5 now behind Oskari Cantonen, who's now pulled away to the tune of about 1 3/4 seconds. So the Finn is on the move. Cito Via has just gone purple in sector 1. Neil Senkowski, fastest lap of the race, 2 minute 9.679. Fastest lap of the race so far in the F3s, set by Nicholas Hillebrand, 2 minute 36.484. So we've got a disparity of around about 26.1 seconds between the fastest F1 car and the fastest F3.
Yeah, if it goes like last time, they caught them on the 5th lap, the final lap of the race, and traffic just about played a part in it. We'll see if it does this time. Here's another look at the incident. Yeah, I mean, he chopped down, and Oskari was there, and unfortunately, he can't make that car disappear, so that cost them both. We are down to only 10 cars running out of our 16 starters. It's been a bit of a bloodbath today.
Yeah, attrition definitely strikes when everyone's deciding, well, okay, we've got the fastest cars, let's go hell for leather, and unfortunately some drivers did not use discretion as the better part of valour in their vocabulary in this final race of day 2 here at Motorama, but it nevertheless has provided an exciting stream for you all to watch, and especially for us to hear on commentary with Christian Deploy doing the stellar work behind the cameras. There we see Max Schrapper going all 4 wheels airborne along with Ascari Kantonen. Gap between them is about a second. There's Nicholas Hillebrand up to 7th place now, the leading F3 car. He's got a 5.7 gap, second gap between himself and Austin Birchfield in the number 34. So Hillebrand running a very, very lonely race, but a race that nevertheless, in the F3 class, he is currently leading and on course to pick up his second victory of the day.
Well, I'm sure a P1 trophy can keep him company at the end of this one if he needs, because it's certainly looking like he's heading that way. Birchfield's going to have to hustle to run him back down. Similar distance between Weyer and Sinkowski at about 4.5 seconds between them. Oh, he's not going to hold on to it long if he keeps doing that, as Hillebrand almost loses control of the car down to the braking of Mountford Corner. Let's watch and see what the gap looks like after that once our timing updates here. And did he actually get away with that? Yeah, it's still showing at about 5 seconds here.
Yeah, maybe Birchfield might have had the same slight problems that Hillebrand suffered going into that final corner, but this is the replay of the start. Ascari Kantonen did not want to invoke a jump start penalty there, so he waited, then got going, and that dropped him way back into the F3s, and then nearly had wheel-to-wheel contact. 2 wheels on the grass trying to make overtakes down the start-finish straight, heading towards the viaduct for the first time. Again, another 2 wheels on the grass. I mean, I've known Ascari Kantonen in previous historic racing, historic sim racing, that he's taken risks. And one of the F3, well, that was Robin de Vos exiting stage right, going towards the King's Bridge. But Ascari Kantonen just make it all, and that was probably a reason why we saw Nicholas Kirsten have that drama, clatter into the right-hand side of the bridge, and then all of a sudden all hell broke loose between the F3s, and we lost 4 on the spot.
Real luck for Kantonen to get by that, and to his credit, he's up to 4th now, so he's kind of lucky also in that he's avoided most of the drama that's been happening around him. There he is now, as he just takes out one of the poles at the side of the track. He's still pushing as hard as he can, but he's got to make up 8 seconds to get to Matt Wright and onto the podium, and we're already on the final lap of the race, so I'm not sure he's really going to be able to catch up. We've also lost Celadon, unfortunately, our latest DNF in this race from the Brabhams.
Yeah, so we're nearly halfway through the field in terms of retirements here, Joe. But at least I'm sure that everyone will be breathing a big sigh of relief when we get to the checkered. But there you see Ascari Kantonen closing in and is going to lap. That's probably Carl Struhal that he's just got through as he turns it into the right-hander. Sideways from the fin again, just a little bit of style from there, and this is back as Celadon. Oh, that was a hard hit, just lost the back end, puts the power down, lights up the rears, and off into the scenery, and loses one of the front wheels in the process. But Sido Weyer looking to echo the victory of Sir Drac Brabham back in 1967 in the Tasman Series, back at this circuit when it was still in operation before being closed just a year later. He's got a comfortable, commanding lead over Neil Senkowski to the tune of just over 11 seconds. As now into Mountford Corner comes the number 1 from Brabham Motorsport, and here comes the checkered. And what's more, Brabham Motorsport picks up the final win of the Motorama weekend, courtesy of Sido Weyer.
Just a great win to keep it together and fight off some fast comers. But Ascari Kantonen actually moves up into 3rd, it looks like, here right at the end. Something must have happened to Matt Wright. So the Finn is going to be able to take a podium finish in the end, despite not getting off the line like he wanted. Meanwhile, we have to wait a whole lap for Nicholas Hillebrand to come back around because he did not get lapped.
No, he's just been doing exactly what he needs to do, and he's 8.9 seconds ahead of Austin Birchfield. Robin DeVos and Carl Struhal have already crossed the stripe and taken the checkered. A lap down off of the race leaders, so Hillebrand and Birchfield making sure they did not get lapped. So it gives them the opportunity just to have a little bit more of a bit of fun in these EVE F3 cars for the final time this weekend.
Matt Wright missed the braking, and that cost him a chance to spray the champagne in the last race. There goes Ascari Cantonen by. You could even see him just round the corner as he whipped the car around. What a run from Nicholas Hillebrand to be able to come away with this one up through Newry Corner. Just glancing that inside curve before it climbs up the hill and then crests at the top. It'll come on back down along the Flying Mile. All he has is one more corner to go.
Yep, steady drive here by the number 70, the man from Germany, West Germany to be more precise, in the Nordrhein-Westphalia region, just off of the Ruhrgebiet, one of the biggest industrial complexes in modern day Germany. But yeah, he loves his historics. He's even done the old Biggles treatment from time to time as Nicholas. He's put on the goggles, put on the scarf, and even put on the racing gloves, period of that era, to get himself that full feel. But yeah, nice and neatly he gets through. Bit of tail wagging coming out of the final corner, and Nicholas Hillebrand picks up the win in the F3 class for the final race for our sim racing portion here at Motorama for 2024.
So we'll get, I believe, 9 finishers then out of our 16 starters, just over half of them managing to get to the end. So it is quite a bit like the classic races where you didn't get so many cars to get to the finish in those days. And it was quite a bit of race of attrition, which means we've got our results for the last one to give you that order. And Cito Vire is your victor in the end. Neil Santowski was in second and Ascari Cantonen P3. After that, Matt Wright finishing fourth was followed by Max Schrappa in fifth. Nicholas Hillebrand, your winner in the F3 class, sixth overall. Austin Birchfield behind him in seventh. Robin DeVos in eighth. Carl Struhal last to finish there in ninth. Celadon, the first of your many DNFs on this one. He'll be followed by Gardner, Jones, Purchase, Hermans, Kirsten, and Johnson, not able to complete the last race of the weekend, as well as that's all 4 of our races here for today at the Taz Motorama. So can't thank everybody enough once again for coming out and joining us. I'm just going to check with our producer to see if we're going to be chatting with some of these drivers. Looks like we do plan to try and talk to a few of them here. So let's see who we get lined up as we wait for our interview room to fill with one of our winners. Definitely tell that Cito Vire really wanted this one until that problem, Alex, that Gardner had. He was fighting him hard.
Oh, that was 2 gladiators battling it out in the good old Brabham BT20. Yeah, it was just a real shame. I mean, Reese Gardner just having a bit of a big problem on that front and just losing it at a most uncustomary part of the circuit, and yeah, just dropping himself down the order, then DNFs. So it just goes to show that sometimes luck can be on your side. But unfortunately, on this particular occasion, for the final race of the weekend here at Motorama, it was not going to be easy for Reese Gardner, and ends up rounding things out. But it looks like we've got an interview at hand.
We do indeed. Our winner in the F3, Nicholas Hillebrand, joins us. Nicholas, congratulations on the victory. We were watching, though, in the early stages of the race, we saw a little bit of a problem down into Mountford Corner. Was there almost an oh no moment for you out there?
Yeah, more than just an oh no moment. That was that last brake marker 300 or 200? Oh no. So yeah, it doesn't sound too relevant, but I have to brake right after the 200 marker in this car, and yeah.
Oh, that's even more scary as you're trying to figure that one out. There was a huge accident. Have you had a chance to go back and look and see what cost a lot of the drivers by not even getting to the first couple corners? You had lost half of the F3 field behind you.
Yeah, I saw a little bit of something going on, but I wasn't quite sure what happened. I saw something just in the rearview mirror. I heard from Austin that he had a slight misjudgment because he thought Oscari was coming through on the side as well. And yeah, now I'm looking at back, it just looks like a miscommunication because, you know, of course, it's always really imposing when one of the big F1 cars comes through. And, you know, we're just in our little 1 liter Cosworth MAE Screamers with 105 horsepower. So, yeah, it's just unlucky, I suppose.
Yeah, Nico, good to have you in the interview room as well. I want to take you back to the Mini versus Cobra duel, and you and Oscar Cantonon, final corner, final lap of the race. What on earth was going on there? Because it was like the handbags had been brandished at dawn.
Yeah, the rear end locked up a little bit, and unfortunately then it touched the left side of the grass, which caused it to lock up even more. And I tried to basically just throw the anchors out and everything, but yeah, as soon as you touch one of those tires on the inside, you just go airborne and couldn't slow down anymore there in that situation. It was really unfortunate, but yeah, I just thought, you know, it was the least I could do to let him back through as well, because the Oscari, like, he basically made his move at the perfect time there. I made the mistake when trying to counter that move, and yeah, that's just his win. That's just fair and square.
A good sportsmanship there, Nicholas. But yeah, it was. I was like thinking, oh dear. Like we could see with the minis, obviously being front engine, front wheel drive, you both were squirming under brakes, and just the way that you just completely lost it and used Ascari to right yourself going through into Mountford Corner was quite hilarious at the time. Wouldn't you agree, Joe?
Yeah, it was a lot to take in there at the moment. Well, again, congratulations, Nicholas, on the victory here at the last call.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks, guys, for bringing on a fantastic broadcast for this great event.
Thank you for having us. And that was our winner in the F3s, followed by, unfortunately, one of our DNFs in the F1 class, but had a win earlier on today. Reese Gardner, congratulations on your win in the minis earlier, but talk to us a bit about what happened there in the early laps of the open wheel race. Looked like you had a problem in Tannery.
Yeah, Tannery, it's always a difficult corner in any car, really, but I don't know. I just pushed a bit too hard there. I had the slipstream off Cedo, and I suppose I had a bit more speed than I expected, so carried a bit too much speed through the dip, and yeah, I just got into the grass and spun, really. Cedo tagged me on the way through. Nothing he could do, but into the berm and suspension damage, unfortunately.
Yeah, we saw you try to crawl it back, and then call it a day there, which is a bit of a shame, especially considering you were having some good battles. Today, though, seemed like things fell apart somewhat frequently, though, in this case.
Yeah, I mean, the Cobra race, I wasn't expecting a good result in because that's not my strongest car, but I'm really dirty about the handicap race, honestly. I largely did it to myself. Unforced error in the braking zone coming into the last corner, which was weird. I really wasn't expecting the car to go on me like it did. But yeah, I tried to get ahead, tried to battle with Max and Matt, but yeah, things got a bit overboard in that battle. You know, so I don't know, just not as satisfying a day as it was yesterday.
No, but that's racing. You can't win them all, of course. Speaking of which, you're a regular here in the HRSC. Are you looking forward to the next race that we're going to have coming up later on for the sports car series you guys are running?
Yeah, Carrera Mundial. I'm looking forward to that. You know, I obviously wasn't here for round 2 because it was my partner's birthday dinner, and I couldn't exactly tell her, hey, you know, there's this sim race that I got to do. So yeah, it'll be good to return. I don't have a teammate, so I'm gonna be a little silly and do the 6 hours solo, but we'll see how we go at Le Grand.
Well, best of luck on that one. I'm sure that's going to be pretty exhausting. And again, congratulations on the win a little earlier today.
Thanks very much, guys.
Reese Gardner taking the victory over in the minis earlier on. Again, Alex, thank you so much for coming in and sharing your joy and enthusiasm for these cars and this style of racing. I hope you enjoyed your time.
Joe, I mean, it's always a pleasure to be alongside you on the commentary position. I mean, it's wonderful to still be able to talk about historics in motorsport. I mean, that's one of the big things as a motorsport enthusiast. You have to understand how we got to where we are now, and with these kind of classes, with this old school, no ABS, no traction, it's just literally just going by the seat of your pants. That's the kind of racing that really appeals to a lot of people, especially myself. I mean, I still have, here in my office, I have a schlack load of old books that I'm still reading through at the moment, which I think also includes the legend that is Mr. Sam Posey. I've got a wonderful book on him, amongst other people. But then it's also just like through sim racing, as I said earlier on in the broadcast, whereby we can understand, we can get a feel of what was happening in the 60s, because back in those days, you look at the likes of Graham Hill, Jim Clark, Bruce McLaren, Jack Brabham, they were racing anything and everything. There were no constraints on these drivers. You know, they get a drive to race somewhere, they're going to go for it. And through the wonders of sim racing nowadays, people of this era can live vicariously through what those drivers did back in those days. And it's great that historic racing is really, really coming to be one of the niches within sim racing that are now being really much enjoyed by the greater public, including yourself and myself. And of course, we have to say a big thank you to the team, including Wuchu at Motorama, for making sim racing a part of this fantastic event at Simmons Plains Raceway. A big thank you to them for hosting the event, Taz Petroleum, of course, Genisus Extreme and the team headed up by the likes of Daniel Costello, and of course also Christian Deploy has been hard at work behind the cameras, and the tie-in with HRSC has been a great one as well.
Indeed. Yeah, I concur. A big thank you to the team and everybody at Motorama. Hope you're enjoying the last of the event. We certainly enjoyed getting to bring sim racing your way. But until next time, on behalf of Alex Goldschmidt and Christian Duploy, I'm Joe Peak. Race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.
Did you hear that Taz Petroleum Motorama is on Bigger and Better?
Is that just a guy thing?
It's for the whole family with something for everyone. Motorama is more than just cars and bikes.
Can we go? Can we go? Our rides are free.
Sure thing. Let's get our tickets.
Yay!
Get your heart racing and your adrenaline pumping at Taz Petroleum Motorama. October 26th to 27th, Simmons Plains Raceway. Go to motoramataz.com.au for tickets.
G'day guys, welcome to Motorama, a throwback to the great days of racing in Tasmania from 1953 through to 1968 at the wonderful Longford racetrack. Bit over 4 miles of racetrack, the fastest track in the Southern Hemisphere, attracted 7 Formula One world champions in that period of time. Today and tomorrow, you get to race on this fabulous piece of track in cars from the era. Wish you all good luck, have fun with it, and enjoy Longford.